All right, welcome back to another episode of Two Fans, 12 Rings. Brad, how are you, man?
I'm good, man. It's always nice when you have the day off while free agency opens. You can watch your shows, look at all the updates, see everything that's happening on the fly, have some time to decompress. You don't have to try and balance work and all the stuff going on.
Yeah, so I work with a friend of the pod, Dan. Some people know him as Yao. Um, and I go out to the warehouse and I'm like, hey, man, free agency starts in an hour and a half. If you already haven't set your alerts yet for Rap Sheet and Scheffler, for Twitter time, right? And all of a sudden, like right before noon, it's like 11:30. I realized that like Twitter's not updating. I'm like,
Yeah.
what the heck? It just kept saying posts won't load. And for those of you that use Twitter or X or whatever you would choose to call it these days, um, that in my opinion, there's no better source on this planet for up to date, like on the second breaking news, than to follow those two on Twitter. And it just wouldn't update. And I would say for the first hour, I had to basically use Facebook and Instagram and
I'll tell you what,
stuff like that.
on the insiders too, Jordan Schultz was having like a really, really positive day. And also
Yeah.
in times when Twitter was up and even with it when it wasn't, my sleeper app, we use that for fantasy football and I use it for a lot of stuff. And yeah, it was racing Twitter to get like the stuff out. It would say like rumor report, and then like a minute later, Ian would put like the official report. So it's not always 100%, but like,
You don't use it for news. You use it for news, like you have the news alerts on.
yes, I use it for news.
Interesting.
I use it to look up lines. I have my favorited sports. I do fantasy through it. I don't gamble through it, which is an option. I don't do any of that. But yeah, like if someone was like, "Hey, who plays in football this Saturday?" I don't go to ESPN. I go to Sleeper app and go over to it and I look. Like I use the Sleeper app. It's actually one of the probably top 3 most used apps on my phone.
Interesting.
Yeah, I
Okay.
love and a lot of the stuff that was coming out through Twitter was coming out right through Sleeper as well.
Yeah. Well, we got an action-packed episode. Obviously, there are going to be live reactions, I'm sure, to certain stories that come out later. We're going to talk about moves the Steelers made, the Patriots made, the rest of the NFL has been making or haven't been making. Um, and we're going to do a complete mock draft round one. So, Brad gave you a glimpse of 10 picks earlier a couple weeks ago, the last time we recorded. We took about a 2-week layoff, and here we are back, and we're going to do a full 32 pick round one. And that's how we're going to kick her off. So, are you ready?
Yeah, just one fun thing I was briefly telling you before the before we went recording. Um, I don't know how many times I can remember this happening, but 1 to 32 is exactly as the structure intended. There is no team with multiple picks. There is no team who is missing out. 1 through 32 are shaped exactly how the teams finished last season, and it's pretty standard thus far. 1 through 32. And spoiler, I until like the week before the draft and we get real close, I don't do trades. Even if I think one could happen or it would make sense, there is no trades here in this one.
Yeah. So, before we go into the actual mock itself, I wouldn't mind talking briefly about this. The fact that nobody has two picks, the fact that nobody is really traded, do you think that is intel on how this draft class is perceived? Is that Do you think it has to do with the quarterback? Like, do you think that has anything to do with the actual class itself?
I do for the fact that it is a direct indicator about how people feel about the quarterbacks, I think. But you could also say the past few years, there have been 5 and 6 quarterbacks taken. So teams either like their quarterback or they're still waiting to see the verdict on their own. So they're not super aggressive to get a quarterback. And with the depth of quarterbacks that are like, who knows, Quinn Ewers, Kyle McCord, Jalen Milrow, Tyler Shuck, like Will Howard, a lot of these guys, it's like they could work, they could not, but it seems people are comfortable taking them in rounds 2 through 4, 3 through 5 instead of moving up to get them at the top end.
Let's start with the first pick. So the Tennessee Titans went 3-14 last year. They got the number one pick. They have not traded it. I do believe that their only comment is basically we want to take the most talented player in this draft. With that said, the first pick is who?
I think the number one graded player in the whole draft, I think it's Abdul Carter, edge rusher. For one, I think that they want to build the defense up first. They're not fully out on Will Levis, and if they are, I hear reports that they're targeting Russell Wilson in free agency. So I do think that the GM wants to make sure he hits on his first pick, not create a quarterback controversy. And I think it's Abdul Carter, edge rusher from Penn State. I know he had the little foot scare thing. I think that seems to be absolutely nothing. He's the highest graded player. He dominated in Big Ten play. And I think this is just you can't miss if you draft this guy. I think it's going to work.
Pick 2 belongs to the Cleveland Browns, who also finished 3-14. Myles Garrett recently asked to be traded. I think most people thought he would yield 2 first-round picks. Said he wanted to go to a team that could win a Super Bowl. Instead, the Browns say they're not trading him, and kind of out of nowhere, make him the highest paid player in all of football that does not have quarterback next to his position. So he is an absolute dominant freak. With that said, what's Cleveland's plan with the second pick?
Yeah, I don't think they can afford now with the contract with Deshaun Watson and the contract to Myles Garrett. I don't think they can afford to pay big monies for more quarterback play, but they need quarterback play. So I think they draft one here. I think Cam Ward, who, again, I don't want to say like I have my own big board made, but I listen to a ton of podcast stuff. I'm very in depth in the draft and everything, unless all 32 teams are lying. It seems like Cam Ward will be the first quarterback taken whenever that is. So I think Cam Ward is going to be drafted by the Cleveland Browns with the second pick. And I think he'll start because I don't think Deshaun Watson's even going to be able to play this year with the re-tear of the Achilles.
Can we make something pretty clear right now before we go any farther?
Yeah.
Who's your top quarterback in this draft?
I would take Shedeur Sanders.
We agree 1,000%.
Yeah, I would take Shedeur Sanders. At every level, he was the best. And again, I know Colin Cowherd, who we listen to, has drilled on this. Any quarterback who suffers that much pressure rate and is never rattled, he's always calm in the big game. He's been around professionals his entire life. If you don't like the backwards hat and the iced out chain or him showing to watch, sure. But I mean, that's small when it's compared to can you diagnose the gameplay and spin the rock? And he can do all that. And people are saying, well, Cam Ward's a little bit more mobile. I haven't seen that. They both scamper if they kind of need to. No one's doing Lamar Jackson stuff. And quite honestly, I didn't really like the taste of my mouth when Cam Ward jumped mid-ship because he set the record for Miami in his bowl game. So I would take Shedeur Sanders.
Yeah, just to be clear here, our fantasy football chat, we have a good group of guys. We like to just talk sports and argue like all guys do. And the last 2 years, here's the rankings of teams in which I watched the most. Michigan 1, Ohio State 2, Colorado 3. I watched a ton of Colorado. I just think Shedeur's really good. I think he's really good. And I think it would take a really poor situation for him to not be fine. I'm not projecting he's going to be this all-world Pro Bowl quarterback. I just don't think he's going to be a bust. I don't think he's going to suck. And I think he's going to be a good player. Do I think he's going to be Jaden Daniels? I don't know. Nobody thought that. You know what I mean? It's just like, do I think he can? Here's a good comp. Do I think he could be at least Trevor Lawrence right now? Yeah, I think he could. I think he could.
If the draft goes right, and he would be the second quarterback taken. 2 years ago, Bryce Young was first, C.J. Stroud was second, and he broke all the records. Then Caleb Williams was first, Jaden Daniels was second, and he set all the records. Cam Ward could go, Shedeur would be second, and it could be a 3-year thing in a row, and we could develop a pattern, and now teams want to be the second quarterback. No, I'm just saying that, when you're taking these guys fit, how it all works out, there's just so much unknown. But, again, Cam Ward, I think, goes to the Browns, and that's just – and Cam Ward came out, anybody who passes on me, just know I'm going to be playing you, but I guess it's just the Titans. And that's kind of where I have it.
Yeah. Sorry to go long. I just wanted to make something clear because I don't think we had really touched on the pod. I wanted to be
Top three picks, quarterback talk. It's always important.
And here's the thing: the listeners want to know who we have higher and who we are projecting as a top guy. Pick 3 does belong to the New York Giants. Weirdly enough, Shedeur Sanders did wear some New York Giant cleats in a bowl game. 3-14 on the year.
Yeah, Shedeur Sanders and Malik Neighbors are going to be a nice pairing. I think that's going to be fun. Wan'Dale Robinson got a lot of targets last year as the 2 receiver. Tracy, he was a nice piece at running back. They have good pieces at the O-line. I'm not sure where it is, but they have a top 3 pick in the second round where they can add offensive line, another receiver if they'd like. There's stuff they can do later on. But I do think it's Shedeur Sanders, and I will mark it that I do believe both quarterbacks are gone in the first 3 picks. Could be 1 and 2, could be 2, 3, could be 1, 3. Not 100% sure, but I do think that they will be gone. I'm going to take Shedeur Sanders here, back-to-back quarterbacks coming out in the first 3 picks.
Pick 4 belongs to the New York. New York. How disgusting!
The New York Patriots, baby, come on.
Let me gag for a second. I just ruined my own team. I almost called them the New York Football Giants, and then I just started. Anyways, the New England Patriots, obviously my favorite team, 4-13 on the year. They own pick 4. They have the most cap space in the league. They've been spending it today, which I can't wait to discuss. But who is here at 4 that New England's going to be selecting?
Yeah, like you said, we'll get more into their free agency stuff. I do believe this is a team that, because the top 3 tackles are all pretty good, I think could trade back in this spot at 4 with some of the activities of top players. But I think it's going. I really haven't wavered off this pick much. I think it's going to be Will Campbell out of LSU. Could play some tackle, could play some guard. The Patriots did sign a right tackle in free agency, so you got a guy on the left side. And Vrabel is kind of adamant. O-line, D-line. It's kind of what the entire league is talking about right now. You have Drake May. You protect him. You did that in free agency a bit. Let's do that in the draft as well. Will Campbell and Calvin Banks came in as like the top 2 tackles from Texas and LSU. Josh Simmons is rose up boards a ton off the injury from Ohio State. So those 3 tackles are all in play here, but Will Campbell tested great at the combine. He's done well at LSU for 2 notable quarterbacks in Daniels and Nussmeier. I think that's the pick here at 4. First O-lineman off the board, Will Campbell to the Patriots.
Pick 5 belongs to the Jacksonville Jaguars. They went 4-13 last year as well. Obviously, they still have Trevor Lawrence. What brand new head coach in town as well. They've already made a few small moves in free agency. What's the pick here at 5?
Yeah, Jaguars have kind of touched a bit on O-line and D-line through free agency. They need corners and they need receivers, so they're going to get both in 1 pick. I think this is one place where I could absolutely see Travis Hunter getting the opportunity to play both ways, both at a position of need. I don't know how long they would do that, and quite honestly, I think Jaguars need corner more than they need receiver. So I think this is a place where Travis Hunter can come in and be a defensive back and have packages in the offensive room to help Trevor Lawrence. I think it'll be, 65-35 DB, and then he can play slot. Brian Thomas Jr. is a nice receiver. They signed De'Ami Brown. How much do we think he's going to last? It's just a 1-year deal. Travis Hunter is an elite playmaker that gets eyes back on Jacksonville. They don't want to hear all this noise about moving the team to London. Let's get a nice playmaker for Trevor Lawrence. Let's make it happen. But Travis Hunter, the Heisman winner out of Colorado, goes 5 to the Jaguars.
They do feel like they've made, and we'll talk about their moves later probably, but it does feel like they've made moves to draft Travis Hunter.
Yeah.
It does feel like that. Pick 6 belongs to Las Vegas, the Raiders. They went 4-13 last year. They did trade a 3rd-round pick for Geno Smith. Does that take them out of the quarterback room or, the quarterback market, I should say? Pete Carroll obviously takes over as head coach there, so you would imagine that window is not massive. He probably wants to see some success. Tom Brady, lots of talk about him being involved in the picks. Who you got going here at 6?
Yeah, Pete Carroll loves the running game. Tom Brady needed a running game. This team had no rushing attack last year. I think Ashton Genty's off the board at 6. I could have thought it could have been a wide receiver, but there's been little running backs that have gotten this much hype in the last few years. Bijan Robinson, probably the last one. He went about 7 or 8. I would have taken the Raiders at quarterback, but after the signing of Geno, it could be running back or receiver. I don't think the receivers are high enough. You could argue Will Johnson at corner potentially. The Raiders just lost a corner in free agency, but I believe if you're looking at value, rating of player, need, Ashton Genty comes off the board at 6. Some people say wait later for a running back. No, I think it's right here. I think he deserves it. He almost won the Heisman last year, but his ability, I believe I read a statistic that last year the player who broke the second most amount of tackles was Omarion Hampton with 33, and Ashton Genty had 85 or 88 or something like that. It was over double. And Ashton Genty's just crazy. We saw every week you turn it on, he's got 3 touchdowns and 211 yards. We were talking about Barry Sanders stuff here. So he can catch, he can run. Let's get a weapon. Let's get something to the Raiders that we need. Let's hope Geno out with a run game.
Pick 7 here belongs to the New York Jets. Today they make a splash and they sign away your boy Justin Fields on a short deal. They obviously moved off Aaron Rodgers. They moved off Devontae Adams. They've made some quiet moves, but 5-12 last year. Pick 7. Who's the pick?
Yeah, the New York Jets, they've like you said, Justin Fields. They've addressed quarterback. You could talk about weapons, but Lazard's still on the roster. You have Garrett Wilson, shout out Fields' teammate back at Ohio State. Some people forget about that. You have Breece Hall, so you have 2 weapons. Justin himself is a weapon. But I look at their head coach, defensive guy, coaching in Michigan, needs a gritty guy, and would take my 3rd highest period rated player if I had a big board. Mason Graham from Michigan, defensive tackle, goes to the Jets. Also, defensive tackles have been proven if you can get a real good one that can collapse the pocket. Cameron Hayward, Chris Jones, I can't believe I'm blanking on his name from the Eagles. Jalen Carter. So you get Mason Graham, a real game wrecker in the middle. They just lost Javon Kinlaw, D-tackle, in free agency. So you have a gap there that you already had before you lost him. Mason Graham can't fall further than 7. I truly believe that. He's just too good of a player, outright just unbelievable. So I will take Mason Graham to the Jets at 7.
Pick number 8 belongs to Carolina, which, weirdly enough, pick number 8 is where they also drafted J.C. Horn, who signed a monster deal today. But 5-12 for the Carolina Panthers, a team that looked like they were destined to have back-to-back number 1 picks. But Bryce Young kind of found himself late in the year, and they're trying to build around him. What do you got Carolina doing here at 8?
So Carolina really did some nice moves in free agency, trying to build a complete team here. I don't think there's a wide receiver worth a pick at 8. So I look at their next needs, and it's anywhere in the front 7. They could really use just anything in the front 7. And I believe the 3rd best defensive player in the draft, if you don't count Travis Hunter, we'll see how that goes. Abdul Carter, Mason Graham. Then I think it's Jalen Walker from Georgia. He can get down and rush the passer. He's off ball, middle, just an overall beast in the front 7. And we all know how Georgia defenders have panned out over the past few years. I think another defender goes here for the Panthers. You could argue receiver. I just don't know if Jalen McMillan's going to go in the top 10 or Matthew Golden or Mecca Egbuka. I just think that the value for defense at Jalen Walker here is going to be the top pick.
Pick number 9 belongs to the New Orleans Saints. 5-12 last year. This is a team that is in a lot of cap situation and just cap hell, really, is what best way to describe it. Kind of an aging roster. They've made a lot of moves. They definitely they need to hit home runs for here on out. For the next couple of years, they need to hit home runs like the Eagles have been hitting. Who's the pick here at 9?
Yeah, I look at what the Falcons are doing with their passing game. I look at Baker retaining all of his weapons in the passing game. I look at what Bryce Young has been able to do after the benching. And I say you lost Marshawn Lattimore. The cleanest defensive back prospect is Will Johnson out of Michigan. I think he goes down to New Orleans here. I think they take the best corner in the draft, maybe even the best DB. Again, depends on how you count Travis Hunter. But I'll take Will Johnson from Michigan to the Saints. I tossed and turned on. This was the first pick where I really, really struggled because there was another guy. It was Tyler Warren, the tight end from Penn State. I didn't know which one to go here. Kellen Moore could have won an offensive weapon that's a versatile O-line and another weapon. I could see Tyler Warren here, but I went with Will Johnson, corner.
Pick 10, Chicago Bears. There's an argument that this team's been the most busy of any team in all of football this offseason, making trades for linemen, signing D-line, like just completely being all in. 5-12 last year after having the number one pick because of obviously a trade 2 years ago. They get Caleb Williams. Who's the pick here at 10?
This will shock some people a little bit too, but Ben Johnson has his quarterback. He has his O-line. He has his receivers and a tight end. He needs one more piece, Omarion Hampton, running back from North Carolina. These two guys, I believe, should be graded this high. Omarion Hampton would be still a top 10 pick. He's competing with Ashton Jeanty for his versatility and his complete package. If they do keep DeAndre Swift, Ben Johnson likes having two good running backs. They spent a 12th overall pick on Jahmyr Gibbs. I don't think it's crazy to see them. It would have been a tackle, I think. But the fact that they got two guards and a center, their center's amazing, and their guard has shown the ability to play tackle. They've spent first-round picks on a tackle 3 of the past 4 years. I just think the O-line is about built. They use their free agency money. I love Omarion Hampton here to the Bears for a complete dynamic offense for Ben Johnson to have plenty of room to just do work with. I like that a lot.
I do think that the Bears are a huge candidate to trade back because of how many picks they've already given up for guys, and they would probably want to recoup some of that. Their offseason already is an A+. I honestly think that they have had a great offseason already, and anything more at this point is just gravy. So Bears fans got to be happy. Pick 11, not where we're used to seeing this team, at least not in the last couple of years. Even when they drafted at 3 a couple of years ago and took Trey Lance, it was because of a trade. The San Francisco 49ers on the clock. They went 6-11 last year. They've already traded away Deebo Samuel. There's talks about trading Ayuk. Brock Purdy wants a contract. Who's the pick here?
Yeah, Ricky Pearsall did well, and Juwan Jennings did well. George Kittle's there. They signed another tight end. I don't think they're going receiver here. Trent Williams is getting very old, and they just lost a top guard in the NFL. Just went to the Packers shortly before we got on the podcast here. And although a month ago I would have said Calvin Banks here, it just seems like everyone is saying Josh Simmons is a better project at the tackle. Calvin Banks may have to move to guard. Who knows? I think it's one of those two, but I think they're going to go with Josh Simmons from Ohio State, second offensive lineman off the board. You got to protect Brock Purdy, who his contract's going to be coming out anytime soon. So, I think they get protection for Brock Purdy, Josh Simmons, Ohio State.
Pick 12 is the Dallas Cowboys. They're sitting here 7-10, and they are probably frustrated that there's been not one but 2 running backs off the board. Yeah. What's the pick here at 12?
I think Dallas Cowboys, they lost Zach Martin. They just haven't been doing well. And if all your money currently, and with the way the contracts are going, who knows if they can pay Micah. We'll see. But with all your money being Dak Prescott and CeeDee Lamb, I think you have to protect Dak Prescott. I think Calvin Banks. I think it's back-to-back offensive linemen here off the board at 11 and 12. And I've talked to a couple Cowboys fans, and they said, I think we should go O-line. And I said, tackle, interior, what are you thinking? And they said, offensive line. Just anyone on there, let's just get what we can get. So I think Calvin Banks, left tackle for Dak Prescott.
Pick 13 belongs to the Miami Dolphins. 8-9 on the year. Not exactly where they've seen themselves before the 2024 season, but that's where they're at. What are the Dolphins doing here at pick 13?
The Miami Dolphins, I think it has to be defensive. They have Jalen Ramsey and then pretty much no one else in the secondary. It looks like they're not going to be able to afford Javon Holland. So there's 2 safeties that are really good, Malachi Starks out of Georgia and Nick Eamon-Wari out of South Carolina. They were pretty close. And then Nick Eamon-Wari tested out of his shoes at the combine. I think he goes down to Miami. Safety Nick Eamon-Wari out of South Carolina. I think they'll end up having 2 guys go in the first round out of the Gamecocks there. This is the first.
Pick 14, Indianapolis Colts, 8-9 on the year. Obviously they're still having troubles at quarterback. Jonathan Taylor came on late in the year. This is a team that hasn't really been contending, but they won 8 games. Yep. What do you got them doing?
Yeah, so what we're going to say is, look, if you're going to have an honest quarterback competition, you got to have weapons. You're run first. I think he can't go any further. One of these tight ends has to go. Tyler Warren out of Penn State is going to come to Indianapolis, and he's going to be the pick. He's versatile. He can block. He can run. Shoot, they may even need him to play some quarterback, which he showed for Penn State. He could do it if he has to. I just think overall this is a complete package that will help him out in every facet of the offense. Shane Steichen can probably find a couple ways to use this guy creatively. Tyler Warren to the Indianapolis Colts.
That's an interesting pick there. I like it.
I will say also on the site I use, tight end is the number 1 need for the Colts as well. So it's a perfect fit there as well.
I can't disagree. I mean, they need one. They definitely need one. Pick 15 belongs to the Atlanta Falcons, a team that I think prior to the year probably had higher aspirations than 8-9, and it started great. It tapered off. They made a QB change. You would think this is Michael Penix's team. What do you have them doing here at 15?
I'll say this. I'm kind of going to group this a little bit and then let you talk, but I'm going to group it into one because all 3 of these teams, it is their number 1 need is the same position, and they pick all 3 back-to-back. I think, in this order, the Falcons will take edge rusher James Pierce Jr. from Tennessee. His numbers mixed with his combine, I think, will make him the second pure edge off the board. At 16, the Cardinals, edge Shamar Stewart, South Carolina. The guy who everyone just wanted to rant and rave about his combine. The 40, the vert, the cone, the this, the that. He just tested out. People have concerns about his production in terms of him only having 4 sacks on the season, but he was a game wrecker off the edge. I just didn't always land. And then third is the Bengals, edge rusher Michael Williams, if you will, Williams from Georgia. These 3 guys may go in a different order, but the Falcons, Cardinals, Bengals all need edge rushers, and these are the 3 I have coming off. And I'll let you elaborate on that if you want. But it was the Bengals, the Cardinals, and the Falcons.
Yeah, so Atlanta last year went and got Turner from Dallas Turner, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, and then they went out and signed or traded for Matthew Judon, which didn't seem to really work out. They do need another edge next to Turner. Arizona just signed Josh Sweat today, so that feels like they probably won't be taking a first-round edge, but that's just me. Cincinnati needs edge. They need everything. So, yeah, I'm fine with the pick for Cincinnati. Arizona's the only one that I'm like, probably not. After today, feels like they wouldn't attack that in the first round. But you never know.
Free agency opens is a bold strategy by me.
But no, it's fun anyway. Pick 18, the Seattle Seahawks. Been one of the more busy teams in all of free agency, just the open period, I should say. They trade DK Metcalf to the Steelers. Can't wait to talk to you about that trade. They straight up cut Tyler Lockett. They traded Geno Smith for a 3rd rounder, and 2 days later, they signed Sam Darnold to the contract that we've been talking about, the Baker contract, as everybody calls it. 3 years, 100. You're a mid-level guy. You've had success, but we have to build around you, so we're not going to give you $50 million. Seattle's at 18. They were on the bubble last year at 10-7. Who is the pick?
Yeah, Brad. I mean, we're over halfway through, and you haven't taken one yet. Well, now we will. Tetairoa McMillan out of Arizona, the first wide receiver off the board. You got to make the Sam Darnold pick look good. You got to give him weapons. You have a decent running game. You have Jackson Smith and Jigba, and then pretty much nobody. Tetairoa is a different style. Jackson Smith and Jigba plays a lot of slot. He's quicker. He's a route runner. Tetairoa McMillan, 6'4", jump ball winner. Gives Sam Darnold multiple options. He had Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison. He worked well with having 2 receivers, both capable. You open up a lot of stuff on the offensive side. I think we finally have a receiver off the board at 18 to the Seahawks.
Do you think that is do you feel like that is an indictment on the receiver class, that the first one's going at pick 18?
I don't think it is, because I agree with the statement that's kind of worked its way around the internet that who you pick at pick like 15 isn't that different from 35. And what that means to me is if there's no real superstars, it all comes down to team need. What do you need? What position do you value? The receivers have been, for the most part, so good in the first 3 rounds over the past 4 or 5 years. Teams already have a 1 and in most cases have a 2 as well. So there's not really a need for receiver. You now find it at 18, and you're blessed with getting a guy who some years may have been the 8th pick if that's what you needed, but now he falls to 18. And I mean, Tedder McMillan, over 1,000 yards, over 10 touchdowns back-to-back years. I mean, everybody watches him. He had 4 touchdowns in game 1 this year to start the season. So I do think he'll be the first one off the board. And yeah, that's him. There he goes, Seattle.
Now we're talking playoff teams. Pick 19 belongs to the Tampa Bay Bucks, who went 10-7. They were the first team to really make a move in free agency, and they were the first team to make the first 3 moves. They re-signed their guard, Bredesen. They re-signed Chris Godwin. And then they make a cool little trade, signing, and they signed Hassan Reddick. Who is Tampa Bay taking here at 19?
Yeah, and I think this is it's a middle linebacker. Jihad Campbell out of Alabama. I think is the only middle linebacker that's probably going to go in the first round, but he was a stud for Alabama the last 2 years. He's been really good. The Tampa Bay kind of needed an edge or a middle linebacker. They signed Hassan Reddick. I think they draft middle linebacker. I think it's defense in the end, and I think it's kind of anywhere in that front 7. It could be an edge, D tackle, middle linebacker, but now you get Jihad Campbell right behind Vita Vea. I think that's a good spot for them.
Pick 20 belongs to the Denver Broncos, who also went 10-7 last year. What do you got Denver doing here?
I know everybody who's a Michigan fan is thinking at 22 it could happen, but at 20, tight end Colston Loveland from Michigan goes to the Denver Broncos. Jim Harbaugh sees his Michigan man go 2 picks ahead for his offense. But it's what the Broncos need. It's either a running back or tight end, and I have both of the running backs gone, 1 tight end gone. Here's Colston Loveland. Sean Payton's going to work well with him, Bo Nix. Colston Loveland's Denver Bronco.
That's a nice fit for Colston. I'm rooting for him. Pick 21, Pittsburgh Steelers, who also went 10-7. As of right now, they do not have a quarterback, but they did trade for DK Metcalf, so they got 2 nice receivers. What do you have Pittsburgh doing?
I thought really hard about putting quarterback Jackson Dart here. I just don't know how I feel about it, and I don't know what the Steelers are doing in free agency, so I'm going to stay away from quarterback. And again, right in front of Jim Harbaugh, Kenneth Grant, defensive tackle from Michigan, goes right in front of Jim Harbaugh. And if the Steelers take somebody else, Kenneth Grant will be a Charger. But he is going. I think that's a cool story because Jim Harbaugh's talked about it. Never has Michigan had 4 first-rounders. Will Johnson, Colston Loveland, Mason Graham. Jim Harbaugh has a chance to draft a defensive line, a position of need. They just lost Joey Bosa, a defensive tackle, and Kenneth Grant. Jim Harbaugh can make Michigan the first time ever to have 4 in the first round. Regardless, I think it'll happen, but I love it for the Steelers to get Kenneth Grant, who some people in the Michigan room say, hey, he might be better than Mason Graham. I don't believe it, but he's a hound. He's a monster.
In a different way, he could be better.
Put him under Cam Hayward for a year or 2, and let's see what he can turn into.
And to be honest, there's a few spots that I see Kenneth Grant thriving. He would 100% be an anchor for you guys for the next 12 years.
He'd be a Cam Hayward replacement.
Yes, literally.
And
they would dab each other up for a season, and he can go. I mean, it would be a great fit.
The Steelers just let Larry Ogunjobi, defensive tackle, walk into free agency. So it's a position of need just because of how the roster looks now, but because of the age of Cameron Hayward. It needs to be addressed. So Kenneth Grant, I'll take him right there.
Well, go ahead and move into it. Pick 22's LA Chargers, 11-6 last year. Kind of fell apart in the playoffs. A team that needs several things, and they've let a lot of guys go. They're in the middle of seriously overhauling this roster, and they were competitive last year. Who are the Chargers taking at 22?
Look, I don't know. Interior O-lineman Tyler Booker's an option here, the first interior lineman off the board because the tackles are set. But Josh Palmer walked, and 4.29 Matthew Golden from Texas has come up the draft boards with his speed. You pair him with Ladd McConkey, and you really can turn this offense into something special. And when you look around it, Pete Carroll, Sean Payton, Andy Reid, you're going to have to score points at the end of the day. Let's get younger. Let's get faster. Let's let Justin Herbert sling this pill. Matthew Golden, Texas wide receiver to the Chargers.
I like that pick for them. Breaking news. Are you reading it right now? Don't be.
I am. Well, you can read it. I see it, though.
No, I wanted to ask you. I wanted to quiz you.
Oh, you said breaking news. I looked down and saw the X slid down my phone, and I see it. So
it's all good. I was basically going to ask you if I told you that Kenny Pickett just got traded, where would he get traded to?
I would have said.
You would have said what?
I would have said Giants. They need a quarterback. That's what I said, but I don't know.
Yeah, to the Browns.
Yeah, Cleveland.
Yeah, we'll talk about it more. Moving along. Pick 23, Green Bay Packers, 11-6 on the year. That's where the draft is at, by the way. So this pick is gonna be fun for them. But who you got?
Yeah, people are. It's not going to be flashy, I guess, but a lot of draft boards have this guy ahead of Kenneth Grant. I disagree, but Walter Nolan, defensive tackle out of Ole Miss. And it has been talked about the defensive tackles will, like in the first 2-3 rounds, there's probably going to be 9 or 10 of them. One, it's a copycat league. You need a great D tackle too. There's just a lot of good ones in here. So I'll go with Walter Nolan out of Ole Miss, defensive tackle to the Packers.
Pick 24 belongs to the Minnesota Vikings. Last year they took J.J. McCarthy in the first round, and unfortunately he never seen a down in the regular season. But they went 14-3. They shipped their starting quarterback Sam Darnold off. They let him walk. My apologies. Minnesota's going to be a busy team this year, but who they got taken in the first round here?
Caleb Williams with his new O-line coordinator and weapons. Then you have Jared Goff with all of his weapons. Jordan Love and the way their offensive looked. I think you give Brian Flores more weapons, and the Thorpe Award winner at defensive back from Texas, Jahdae Barron, is still on the board at 24. Can play little nickel, can play outside one-on-one, can play a little bit of safety if you need it. A versatile chess piece. You have Harrison Smith. Let's get Jahdae Barron, one of the top 2 or 3, Travis Hunter again, corners in the draft. Jahdae Barron, 24 to the Minnesota Vikings.
This team just made a splash trade right before we got on the pod today. Pick 25 belongs to the Houston Texans, who went 10-7 last year. They did win the division. They traded away Laremy Tunsil to Washington. Does seem like they need a tackle, but who you got taking here?
I did want to make one point real quick on the Vikings before we went back.
Yeah,
because of all the stuff to get JJ and this and that. The Vikings have the 24th pick. They don't pick again until the 5th round.
What?
I do believe, because I don't think that's how it was last year because they traded and had the 2 picks. Let me just double check that real quick. I should have been typing it in while you were reading that. I apologize to the listeners. Give me 1 second. Draft selection. I believe they have a 1st-round pick and 2 5ths, and that's their draft. Yep, round 1, round 5, and round 5 from the Zadarius Smith trade to the Browns. So after this pick, this is their draft. Jahdae Barron, and then we're done until the 5th round. So if you want to talk about a trade-back candidate, whether it's for a quarterback, the Vikings could be looking. That's why there was so much talk about, like, well, if they stay with Sam, do they trade J.J. McCarthy, go with Sam for the future and get some value back?
Yeah.
Pick 24 and then round 5 twice. That's the Vikings draft this year. But any thoughts on that?
I'm sorry?
Any thoughts on that from the Vikings?
I mean, that's the first I'm hearing it. That's tough.
Yeah, that's why we're giving you that.
I don't think they have a ton of cap space either.
No, I don't think they do. But moving on to the Texans, you could say a tackle is a need now that Laremy Tunsil's gone. I'm not going to deny that. 3 of them are already gone. There is still 2 that I think could go in the 1st round, so tackle's plausible here. But what I look at is Stephon Diggs is gone, and who knows what Tank Dell's ever going to be with these injuries. His guy, Emeka Egbuka's there. I think this has to be a receiver. Nico Collins and Emeka Egbuka for C.J. Stroud. They've shown Joe Mixon's versatile, but when they're at their best, C.J. Stroud is throwing the pill around with confidence, moving this offense, big plays. You get another DeMeco Ryans has shown he wants locker room captain material guys as well with his picks. I think that's part of the reason Laremy Tunsil's not there. Maybe he was great, but he's not the type of character he wants. Emeka Egbuka fits the bill. C.J. Stroud will be banging the counter for that. Cade Stover, when he said he wanted Tank Dell, they listened. I think Emeka Egbuka being the third receiver off the board now, when he could have been first in some mocks, is something that you can't miss for C.J. Stroud here. Nico Collins, Emeka Egbuka, and that's how they go. Ohio State.
Pick 26 to the LA Rams. They went 10-7 last year. They re-brought in Stafford. They kept him on board, and then they actually went out and acquired Devontae Adams. Who are the Rams taking here at 26?
They could be picking 1. They could be picking 48. It's an offensive tackle no matter where they're picking. Their defense is so young and so good. Matt Stafford just signed. The interior's pretty good, but you just lost a guard. Let's get a tackle. And there's a guy with kind of little experience, but Sean McVay is one of the best offensive coaches out there, and his name is Armand Membua, I believe is how you pronounce it, but he is the offensive tackle from Missouri. SEC guy, really big, super athletic, tests really well, but he's still kind of young at the position. Get him in there, let him coach him up. I think he's going to be a stud going forward, and the Rams get an offensive tackle from Missouri.
Pick 27 belongs to the Baltimore Ravens. Ravens went 12-5 last year, obviously one of the more dominant teams in the league. Who do you have the Ravens taking?
So with the Ravens, they get a little bit of a boost here. Edge rusher Mike Green from Marshall, and a lot of people probably heard about him. This guy who should be an absolute stud, but he played at a smaller college. So how do you value that? But I believe a lot of people have left him off of their draft boards that high up because he had a sexual assault allegation in high school, and then he had another one in college. He seems to have a little bit off the rails. I believe that the Philadelphia Eagles said if they fall to 32, they still wouldn't pick him. They've put that out there, but I think it's easy for them to say because he's probably being picked ahead. But if there's one locker room or a couple that I think could handle a character like that, I think the Baltimore Ravens will be more than fine with taking on that sort of presence. That's not a shot at what's going on with Justin Tucker. I just realized that crossed my mind. But in my mind, I feel like the Ravens have had a lot of thugs on their defense, if you will, for lack of a better term. So Mike Green from Marshall goes to the Baltimore Ravens.
Pick 28, the Detroit Lions had a splash of a year, just an absolute great year. Unfortunately, it came to an end rather sooner than later. They went 15-2. We got the Lions taken. They return almost everybody.
Yeah, they swapped out Carlton Davis for DJ Reed, which was really nice at corner. I think they upgraded there. I think it's got to be somewhere in that front seven, specifically D-line. I would really like the story. Joel Klatt touched on this in terms of like stepbrothers, if you will, but I do think it would be really cool to see Jack Sawyer and Aiden Hutchinson line up together. I think that would just be fun. Big Ten guy. I just think that's a guy that's, Dan Campbell's mold, but I just don't think he's good enough on the board. I think he's a second-round pick. So I'm going to go with defensive tackle Derek Harmon from Oregon. He was a bit of a game wrecker for them. He was on a team that had national championship aspirations, Big Ten champions. Oregon defensive tackle Derek Harmon goes to the Detroit Lions.
I gave the Chicago Bears the title of the most busy team in free agency in their offseason an A already. This team also deserves an A. It's pick 29 belongs to the Washington Commanders, who went 12-5. This team had the number 2 overall pick last year, selected Jaden Daniels. Since then, they had a great regular season record, almost won the division, only lost the division to the Super Bowl champs, lost the conference championship to the Super Bowl champs. And since then, they've acquired Larry Tunsil at left tackle, Deebo Samuel at, specialty player, wide receiver, running back, whatever you want to call him. They've been making the smart moves. What does Washington do here at pick 29?
The Commanders being on the board, I think that they've addressed a lot of situations. I thought a receiver could be here, but you have Deebo and Terry. Maybe you can wait till round 2 because they have a pick in round 1, 2, and 3. I told you there was 2 top safeties. The one from South Carolina is gone. Malachi Starks from Georgia, a safety that can play all over the place. You look at the Eagles and how they had a lot of versatility in their defensive backfield. You now have Mike Sanders still. You have Marshawn Lattimore. You have Malachi Starks. That's a lot of people that you can move around and change directions with in the backfield. And I think that's just a good pick. He can play in the box. I really like Malachi Starks here for them.
That's a great pick, especially with Jeremy Chin just left in free agency to the Raiders too.
Yeah.
So great pick. Pick 30 belongs to the Buffalo Bills, who went 13-4, lost in the AFC Championship game once again to Kansas City. They haven't done a ton in free agency. Obviously, they just signed Josh Allen to this record-breaking deal. What do you have them doing?
Yeah, so I think I saw somebody say they need a wide receiver 1 with speed. I just look at them adding Josh Palmer. They paid Khalil Shakir. They just drafted Keon Coleman. I don't think receivers on the slate. They could use a running back here. It's late enough in the first round. You could see like the Quinyon Judkins, Trayvon Henderson, Caleb Johnson type pick here late. But I look at it on the back end. They lost 2 big safeties a year or 2 ago. Damar Hamlin's about to leave. They did sign one, so I think they just need defensive back help. But they re-signed Tyler Rapp out there. Do you know who Chavon, I think they pronounce it, Chavon Revel Jr. is? Do you know who that is? So he was from East Carolina, and he was a top 2 cornerback prospect. I believe in 2 games he had 2 interceptions and 1 was a pick 6. And then in September at practice tore his ACL. This was back in September, so he didn't get to play his last year. And he looked like he was on pace to show he's like top 15 pick. I think this is a guy that falls. You've seen Travis Hunter as a DB go. You've seen Will Johnson. You've seen Jahdae Barron, who won the Thorpe and jumped him. I don't think Chavon Revel gets out of the first round. And the Bills, I think, are getting a ton of value. If he, in ACLs, players are coming back from those at a much better rate these days. So I think out of East Carolina, nonetheless, Chavon Revel goes to the Buffalo Bills.
Pick 31 belongs to the Kansas City Chiefs, Super Bowl runner-up. 15-2 last year, best regular season record. This is a team that has started to kind of rehaul their roster because, let's be honest, they're contending for championships, and sometimes that means you got to cut guys that don't, want to get paid and go otherwhere. So who's the pick here at pick 31?
Yeah, I told you, remember we said, picks 15 to 35, it's all about need. I've seen mock drafts with this guy at 16. I've seen him at mock drafts with him being picked at 51. And that's the range for this guy. But Tyler Booker, the first interior offensive lineman off the board from Alabama. So I think that they need to bolster the offensive line. They let a couple guys go. And even the guy they signed, I think it's like Trey or Trent at interior offensive line, it was only a 1-year deal. So they need more on the offensive line. I think that's where they go.
Pick 32 belongs to the Super Bowl champs, the Philadelphia Eagles, 14-3 last year. Absolutely juggernaut of a team and a roster. They did have to let go of Sweat. They had to let go of Williams. They had to let go of Big Play Slay. But for the most part, this team is still loaded and ready to go. Who's the pick here at 32?
Yeah, Bucky Brooks has him as the number 1 D end. I've talked a lot about defensive tackles and edge rushers, so they're kind of like that hybrid mix. Probably play better in a 4-3 than a 3-4. But Nick Scorton from Texas A&M, he'll be the first defensive end, if you will, off the board. But he fits the mold for them. Can play a little bit of the 3 technique, can play a little bit of the outside, move around the line, play around Jalen Carter and Jordan Davis, and do things of those natures. So I have the Eagles taking Nick Scorton from Texas A&M.
Okay, that is a complete first-round mock. We are deep in the weeds here. Any comments now that the draft is done and we can start talking some free agent stuff?
No, there's not a whole lot of comments. It's just, like I said, I think some of the names you see or that we hear on draft night will be a little bit, some it's like, man, I thought he would go lower than that, or wow, he's going that high. And it's like, again, I think there's such a middle ground on, you're not getting superstars, but there is tons of starters. So it really depends on position of need, not by name. Where a lot of times when I'm making a mock draft, or maybe when you're thinking of it in your head, you're like, oh, that guy is going high, or that guy's going this. There's not a ton of those guys. So it's kind of just like, okay, they need a D tackle. There's not much movement. We're going to take this D tackle. Well, that corner's way better. Well, they already have 2 corners they like. So it's all about need more than name.
We're going to start off by talking Patriots and Steelers, but before we do, because I don't think we're going to talk Browns. Do you need to say something?
No, I'm going to use the restroom real quick while you explain this. I'll be able to hear you.
Yeah, you're good. So the Eagles trading, this literally just broke a few minutes ago, so this is pretty fresh. The Eagles are going to trade Kenny Pickett to the Browns for a 2025 fifth-round pick and DTR, Dorian Thompson-Robinson. So DTR has had multiple opportunities to take on a starting role with the Browns. I don't think he's been the opportunity to take on to be their future starter, but he's had plenty of starts. I think if I had to guess, the number is over 8 starts for them. And just you haven't seen the success really start to take off yet. Kenny Pickett, obviously drafted in the first round by the Steelers. I think he was the only quarterback taken in the first round that year. And some people even said this isn't a first-round quarterback, but it was a weaker quarterback draft. He got drafted to the Steelers, and it just didn't work out. I do wonder, Kenny Pickett with an offensive coach and the opportunity to start day one, this is a good fit for Kenny, I think.
By the way,
on Kenny Pickett to the Browns.
Well, the Eagles didn't trade Kenny Pickett. They traded Super Bowl champion Kenny Pickett, mind you. I mean, let's not disrespect the man.
You're right.
No, but he did throw an incomplete pass that won me a lot of money. But what I'm saying is Kenny Pickett, he's not that bad, and he's not that good. He's literally just like, I don't know if they're just holding a place. I have the draft picks by team here. I told you there's a lot of room in rounds 2 through 4 for quarterbacks. You have Quinn Ewers, Jalen Milroe, Tyler Shaw, all those guys. They have their first-round pick. They have a second. They have 2 thirds, a fourth, a fifth, and 3 sixths. So the Browns are a team that can afford to use a lot of picks to move around. If they want to use their thirds and move up into the second to take a quarterback and someone else, they didn't really give up much. So it's like they have to do something because, again, they have to find the cheapest options because they've put so much money into Watson and Garrett that it's like, how do you fill out the rest of your roster? It's going to be very difficult.
Let's talk Pittsburgh for a second here. And I don't even know if we want to get into what they haven't done because I feel like that could be a long conversation. Yeah. Do you want to talk about what they have done? They acquired DK Metcalf for a second-round pick from Seattle.
Yeah.
And obviously, Russell Wilson but Justin Fields leaves, and I know you're interested in him. But go ahead and just kind of take off with what you're thinking about the Steelers offseason so far.
Yeah, I don't want to blame Mike Tomlin a ton. I feel like it's going to put him under the microscope with Steelers fans a little bit more because it seems to me that our offensive coordinator, the players in the building, and the fans wanted Justin Fields. And after being 4-2, he got benched for Russell Wilson. And Justin Fields was a loyal soldier. He ran his little wild card, little plays. He got his first downs when he could. And now he's out on the street, and it's like, I wanted to be a Steeler, but Mike Tomlin clearly doesn't believe in me. I didn't show enough being 4-2. So it is solely on Mike Tomlin in everyone's eyes, unless other information comes out, that's why Justin Fields wasn't in Pittsburgh, because we could have afforded that contract. We offered him one, and he said, I'm going to go somewhere where I can be guaranteed I'm the starter. I don't know how the Steelers fumbled this bag other than on Mike Tomlin. But with that being said, who knows what it could lead into. I don't know how to value DK's trade to the full extent until I know who the quarterback is. But if you were to ask me, I feel like we're a little bit different in this. I have always been reluctant to put DK in the top 20. I thought he was a 20 to 30 receiver, which has me undervaluing him in the past over a lot of people I talk to. However, I have George Pickens in the 20 to 30 with DK, which some people would say I'm overvaluing. So in terms of where I view the Steelers wide receivers, I feel like a lot of people would view it the same in totality. I think you have two guys that you're reluctant to double. I think the Steelers are going to see a ton more cover two. I anticipate them releasing Najee Harris, so we should get better at the running back position. I look at this team, the offensive line's improving. We got rid of Dan Moore, who no one really liked that much. He signed with the Titans. Broderick Jones, who was our first round pick at tackle, has been having to play right tackle because of Dan Moore. He now gets to move back over to his natural position. Last year in the first round, we drafted Troy Fautanu, who had a pec shoulder injury, missed the year. He's coming back. He is a natural right tackle. We got an absolute steal at center in Zach Frazier. So the offensive line's improving. What DK brings, I think, opens up a ton for the offense. You have two deep threats. There's probably, we're looking at anywhere on the season, there's 17 games. So I'd say 20-ish personal fouls on our wide receivers. We're just going to have to eat those throughout the year. That's fine. But I think it opens up a lot for whoever the quarterback is. Deep balls, safety, respect, less guys in the box. Hopefully we get a more explosive running back. Najee's just too slow. We saw what Jaylen Warren and Cordell Patterson could do the way they run. So I overall, I like the DK pick. And it was reported that last year at the deadline, we tried to trade for DK Metcalf. And they said, well, we want George Pickens. And they said, that's our ideal 1-2 punch. George Pickens is off limits. So I plan on seeing them pay George Pickens at some point this offseason. And also, I think it's hard dealing with how much to pay a new quarterback because we saw what happened with Crosby and Garrett. We got to give TJ Watt some money too. So we got to figure out how to do all that. But overall, I'm pleased with the fact that since Omar Khan has become our GM and him and Mike Tomlin have worked together, if it's not working, we're not beating our forehead against the wall trying to make it work. They're going to keep attacking quarterback. They're going to keep making moves, keep drafting offensive linemen, making trades until this team finds an offensive future, which they desperately need. So I'm excited to see DK. When's the last time the Steelers have signed a wide receiver of this level to, I think, have 2 ones on the team now? So we'll see. Pat Freiermuth, things open up for him. I'm excited for the season. And it's March 10th. So, I mean,
Yeah.
NFL does it again.
You have to pick one of these two.
Okay.
Russell Wilson or Aaron Rodgers.
Aaron Rodgers.
Okay. We'll talk more about that. Go ahead.
My ideal path, if people are asking me where we're at now, I would love Aaron Rodgers, and I would love to see Quinn Ewers as a 3rd-round draft pick. That's where that would be my ideal path. It can be any quarterback, I guess, but I don't want to see like Jackson Dart at 21. Like, I think we're going to sign either of these quarterbacks and then draft one because they're both so old, Russ and Aaron. But I would rather have Aaron than Russ.
Are you cool with Jackson Dart in the 2nd round?
We gave up our 2nd-round pick for Metcalf.
That's right.
So I was trying to be realistic. Quarterback in the 3rd round. I don't think Jackson Dart will be there.
Yeah, no, yeah. So let's talk a little bit about what New England's done. Disappointing to see a lot of the moves that have been made over the last several weeks, but there was nothing New England could do. I do wish they would have acquired Joe Thuney via trade rather than the Bears. But I'd seen all these different linemen getting swooped up, and then they haven't really signed any offensive linemen except for the one right tackle from the Jets. But man, oh man, did they go all in on defense. A spot that was always overperforming under Belichick. Belichick leaves, and all these names that we thought were good, Belichick wasn't there to cover it up anymore. So New England goes out and they spend a ton of money on defense, including a bunch of studs. And yeah, I don't know. I think they just signed Josh Dobbs, by the way, which is kind of interesting.
Just a backup plan. You got to have someone back there.
Well, Joe Milton was potentially going to be the backup plan, but there has been lots of talk that he could get potentially traded on draft day for a team to move up or down, or, so. But anyways, I don't have a ton to add on New England at this time. I mean, as of right now, I'm impressed with what they did defensively, but my 2 positions of need are offensive line, wide receiver, and we just really haven't addressed that much. One right tackle.
I look at the character of the guys you got. Morgan Moses, Aaron Rodgers, the only offensive player he really talked absolutely glowing about. Robert Spillane played for the Steelers for a bit. I know what he's about and what he did for the Raiders. He's a casualty hit because of Max Crosby. Had to go. Sorry about it. Harold Landry Jr., what he's done for the Titans. Carlton Davis, he's been on a Super Bowl winning team. Like, you have Kyle Duggar and Christian Gonzalez. All these guys, and Milton Williams, the guy who you said for a second, I'm not really sure I know his name when I was going through the Eagles draft picks. And then you're like, oh, he was that guy who destroyed Baker to win a game, who was a monster in this. So the fact that you got a bunch of these gritty guys, two of which have won Super Bowls, they've been in good organizations. Well, maybe not Morgan as of late with the Jets. But what I'm saying is 3 and 4 year deals for all of them. Vrabel's like, I'm going to set the tone in this locker room and how the team works. And you look at just how Drake May started and then how he got better. Like you said, we need to get some O-line and wide receiver for the Patriots. But all these moves make me think, like, good luck scoring 24 in the Patriots. If we can get some, I don't know. I think already, we're not doing division breakdowns, but I think they're a lock for top 2 in the division. The Bills are going to be the Bills. But, like, the Jets and Dolphins don't scare me at all right now, looking at, like, how they've done so little and what they're kind of working with compared to what the Patriots are doing. And it's all really boils down to their head coach and quarterback, Drake May, Mike Vrabel, which are the two most important pieces. And I think that the Patriots have nailed both.
I was able to really sit in my thoughts today.
Hey, Vrabel's also an off-season addition if you count him.
Yeah. The last time New England had this much cap space and was kind of like the leader in spending all the money was 2021. That was the last season with Josh McDaniels. In that offseason, they brought in Hunter Henry, who's still on the roster, and Kendrick Bourne. McDaniels was able to make the playoffs with Mac Jones with those two guys. I think he wanted those guys to stay. I think he wants to use Pop Douglas. I think there's pieces that he's comfortable with, and he probably told Vrabel, don't go blow the bank on the offensive side. We'll get some pieces, but I can make some things work. I trust in what Josh can bring and elevate the offense, but though we still need pieces. I'm not saying we're good enough to go to war with it, what we have, but I do wonder if, like, Vrabel's like, hey, I'm going to need you to kind of make lemonade out of lemons here, or lemonade out of oranges here, and I'm going to have to try to beef this backside up and get some veteran presence and stuff. It just – I may not have loved the plan, but there was a plan. It's very clear.
Yeah.
We're going to make this defense disgusting.
In the way the draft looks, I think you want to have as many draft picks as you can in the first 3 rounds. I think there's a lot. You're going to find a lot of starters, and the Patriots have 4. They have a first, a second, and 2/3, and they still have a ton of cap space left. So I'm excited to see what they do because obviously I pay attention to the Patriots so much because you and Jeff and we do this podcast. But it's like, oh my gosh, Drake May is so fun. Drake May is so fun to watch, and it's just like, why not just I'm very excited to see what they do. Very excited.
Yeah, right now I am happy.
Because if someone said, hey, who won free agency Monday? There's only 2 answers. And it's Patriots and Bears. In terms of if you want to, who did the best on today, I think those are the only 2 applicable answers. Other teams did well, sure, but what the Bears and Patriots were able to do to their complete roster is,
yeah. So far, the teams that are winning the offseason are the teams that had the first, second, and third pick last year.
That's wild.
But to be fair, that should be the case. You had the first, second, and third pick. You got your quarterbacks. Now you build around them. Like, that should be the case.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like, that needs to happen.
The cap jump, and everybody's anticipating it going up again next year. So to go in now knowing that, hey, if we have to pay a lot of these guys that work out, we can do that next year. I think that's very helpful. But, man, I also get so excited for the Bears, too, because I drafted Caleb Williams in our Dynasty League. So to see Ben Johnson go, then all these offensive linemen, it's like I'm very excited for that.
They already had all their offensive pieces. They just couldn't protect Caleb.
Yeah, no, and that's 3 offensive linemen is a good way to start doing that. We don't need to talk about my fantasy team, but yes, Bears.
A team that I thought just kind of took care of their own and added some pieces, the Bucks. What do you think of the Bucks making their moves quick? I mean, obviously Godwin and then Hassan Reddick, who sat out half the season and ended up obviously signing with Tampa. What do you think about Tampa's moves?
I think Reddick's nice because you get a guy who's a dominant pass rusher. We just forget because he didn't want to play for the Jets last year. We forget how good he is. To re-sign a guard and to re-sign Chris Godwin, you're giving weapons and protection to Baker and supporting him more that we got you. And the emergence of Jalen McMillan now, what that opens up for Chris Godwin, and you still have Mike Evans, of course. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers, I would think, would be front runners to win that division based on the returning veteran offensive production. Tristan Wirfs, one of the best tackles in the league, re-sign a guard, edge rusher. You got your receiving core. Baker's back. Again, they didn't do too much. They took care of some of their own. And I did hear Chris Godwin, 3 years, $66 million, and Mike Evans signed a 2-year extension. So they're there for a couple years. I heard on a report that Chris Godwin left about $20 million on the table. He could have went somewhere else. They didn't release that team as far as I know, but
it's got to be New England.
Maybe, yeah.
And I think the reason I think some more evidence as to it was New England. So, do you remember the first team they actually reported Milton Williams signing with?
Panthers.
And they said that the terms of the deal isn't actually complete, but we're pretty sure he's going to go to Tampa. Well, we had missed out on Godwin. Everybody thought New England was getting Godwin because they were going to offer him the most. And then all of a sudden, Milton signs with New England. I think they were able to we didn't get Godwin. We missed on that piece. Let's shift our money. And that's where the deal actually flipped. That's just my background. That's what I think based off of the pieces that I knew New England was going to try to attack.
Yeah, and then you look at Chris Godwin, and it's like, if I was to go to New England, it's like, okay, I'd be making $20 million more, but colder weather, that's not good for my knee and leg or my ankle injury. Colder weather would make it more difficult. The taxes in Florida versus New England, it's like, I'm really only getting $8 million more dollars. I'll just stay in Tampa. And like you said, that decision from Chris Godwin very may well have impacted the Milton decision for New England.
Seattle goes out, and let's just kind of dumb this deal down. Seattle traded Geno Smith to the Raiders, received a 3rd-round pick, and then signed Sam Darnold. So they basically got Darnold and a 3rd-round pick for Geno. What are your thoughts on Seattle getting Sam Darnold for that deal, the Baker deal as we call it, the 3 years, $100 million?
They had to have loved Sam Darnold because they traded DK Metcalf so that Sam Darnold could keep number 14, which I think is really cool. That's how much they like Sam Darnold. Now, I think it's smart. He gets a solid deal. He gets a lot of it guaranteed. I think he's a good quarterback, but you have to reserve judgment when you think about Kevin O'Connell, Jordan Addison, TJ Hawkinson, Justin Jefferson, Aaron Jones. I don't know if they get any much better in terms of situations for a quarterback. Now, we've seen him in the best situation in Vikings, and we've seen him in one of the worst situations in the Jets. If he can be somewhere in the middle, you're looking at the Seattle Seahawks trying to win with the 14th to 20th best quarterback in the league. I mean, we'll see how it goes for him. Maybe he builds on this narrative and Sam Darnold rips off 6 years where he's considered a top 15, top 12 quarterback. I don't know about that, but for the money, they offered that same money to Geno. And if you were to look at me in all reality, situations are exactly the same. Would you rather have Geno or Sam? Not only is Geno older, but I don't even know if he's that much better than Sam. They kind of have similar paths, really good in college. Then they had some bad situations. Later in the year, they started to do good. Geno has done well, so I don't want to take anything away from that. But I don't know. Seattle right now just feels a little irrelevant to me. You get rid of DK, you get rid of Tyler Lockett, you bring in, Sam Darnold's your quarterback, but it's you have the Rams in your division, you have the 49ers. I don't know. The Seahawks just seem like whatever to me. It didn't move the needle, I think.
No, I don't think you're wrong. I don't know if the irrelevance fair. I think you're being harsh there, but I actually was talking to some Seahawks fans today on Twitter. This one guy, that is a wrestling follow for me as a Seahawks fan, and he was kind of popping off about how he would have rather the team tanked. And that's a fair ask if that's what you're wanting. But he was like mad. He's like, I'd rather keep Geno. There's no way you'd rather keep Geno and a 3rd round pick. Or there's no way you'd rather keep Geno without the 3rd round pick than Sam in a 3rd. Like if it's a straight swap and all you did was get Sam and you let go of Geno, fine. You got a 3rd round pick too.
And like I said, top 3 round picks this year are going to matter.
Yeah, and Geno, Geno's fine. We've defended Geno on this pod. We've had him in top 15 talks, but he's fine. He's not elite. They've been a quarterback away for quite a while. So, yeah, I think Sam's gonna blow the roof off the joint? No, but I think he's an upgrade. Small, but he's an upgrade. There's a reason he didn't get $50 million, but for that deal, if they would have signed him to the 4 years, 100 or 200 for $50 million a year, that would have been a bad choice. But 3 years, 100, which is the Baker deal or the Geno deal.
Yeah, getting $33 million a year is really good. I thought Sam was gonna get somewhere from 40 to 45. I thought he would have been higher paid than Daniel Jones was last year.
That was the talk.
But I do think what we forget sometimes, okay, that was Daniel's 2nd contract, same team. Sam Darnold has seen the shit. He's been through some stuff, and he's been in a good area, blah, blah. This is his first chance to say, yo, it's 33, but I don't care what the league's getting paid. I've worked my whole life. I'm 27. This is my last chance to change my family for generations. I'll take $100 million a year. Let's go to Seattle and run this thing. And
he has running backs, 2 of them. He has a good receiver. They're gonna probably get another one. I know they let go of DK, but
he's finally back on the West Coast too, where he played for USC. Yeah. I think that matters. He grew up as a California kid, went to USC. It's I think he feels more home too. And there's no pressure now. He's got his guaranteed 3-year contract. I'm finally the guy. Let's go do this. I'm happy for Sam Darnold. Yeah. I'm happy for Sam
Darnold. I don't have anything else. Anything else you want to talk about? Colts have made a lot of really
Hey, well, a lot of people said it was the best corner in free agency. Why we've been talking. Charvarius Ward of the 49ers has signed with the Indianapolis Colts. They've signed
now. That's not the only piece they signed, though. Who else did they get?
Well, they signed an edge rusher earlier in the day, or a defensive end. And
Cameron Bynum from the Vikings, the safety. So they went out and got 2 DBs.
Yeah, so
they're redoing their secondary.
I originally had them drafting a safety, and I moved it to Tyler Warren with the way my mock worked out. I don't think they'll be taking a secondary piece.
No.
Based on what
they spent money on it. They spent money on it. Yeah. Well, I think we can.
Yeah. Is there anything that interests you that you want to know what draft picks they have? So I just wanted to go look at the Colts since we were talking to them. They have a 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th. They have their pick in every round, no traded of nothing. They have 7 picks, 1 in every round.
Yeah.
But anyone you were curious, even if it's the Patriots or anybody on what they were working with?
Man, that when you told me about the Vikings, that baffled me.
155. Just trade the 2 5s for a 3rd next year and just get out of this draft. It doesn't matter.
Okay. Let me pull. Let me see here real quick.
I have all the draft picks in front of me.
Yeah, I'm looking for teams.
Okay.
What do the Rams have? Because last year they drafted their first round pick in forever. They have one again this year. What does theirs look like?
So they have a 1, no 2nd, a 3rd and a 4th, no 5th, and then 3 6ths.
Rumor has it you can have Cup for a 5th.
1, 3, 4, 6, 6, 6.
Interesting.
The Rams may be a trade back candidate if they want to have 2 seconds. But something that I thought was interesting is okay, let's take a team like the Buffalo Bills, right?
Yeah.
That was a team maybe people thought could make a big move. Maybe they trade up. This is a team that James Cook looks like he wants the $16 million a year. I don't he's been talking real about money, so he may walk.
Mhm.
Let's say the Bills want a running back. They have their first, and then they have 2 seconds. Then they have a third and they have a 1, 2, 2, 3, 4, 4.
Wow.
So the Bills actually have a lot of room to be a team that moves around. Having 2 seconds, you look at the first 3 picks that they have in the top 64. So you're looking at 3 positions they could attack. They can get a running back, a corner, a safety, maybe an offensive lineman. Like the Bills in the first 3 days, you're going to see the round 1 pick, and then on Friday night you're going to see 2 seconds and a third from the Bills. Like people are going to come up.
Obviously,
I just
they
think
have a late first and a late second. What's their other second?
It says it's from Houston via Minnesota. So whatever Minnesota would be picking. So
24. So
it's both going to be back end.
yeah.
But it's just like at the same time, it's like the Bills, I feel like are going to be a team where you're going to come away and be like, okay, Josh Allen won MVP, signed that contract, and they drafted blank, blank, and blank. Wow, man, the Bills, like they're going to be talked about, I think, a lot after the draft.
Yeah. Yeah, if they're getting 3 top 60 players, that's nice.
I'm trying to look for teams that potentially just have 2 seconds. The Panthers have a first and 2. Nope, sorry, never mind. That's not right. The Chicago Bears, a first, a second, and a second from the Carolina trade with for Bryce Young and whatnot.
That trade's not done yet.
They have a second from Carolina.
Oh my goodness.
So if it's from Carolina, the Bears have the 9th pick, and the Panthers have what, the 7th pick or 8th? Yeah, they're right next to each other, aren't
8, they? Yeah, 8 and 10. It's 8 and 10.
Okay, so yes. 10. So in the second round, they have 3 picks in the top 44, 42 picks.
Yeah.
And they just did all this in free agency.
Dude, Chicago's about to be sick.
Chicago, if they do first round running back, they can do second round and take the best tackle available. And then they can do whatever they want, really. Actually, if you look at the Bears, because, sometimes trades, it's like first, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh.
No wonder they've been trading all their picks to get these linemen. They have so many picks.
First, second, third. So if you even go to the third round,
walked in there. He's like, "Why do we have all these picks? Get them out of here."
Yeah, if you go to the third round and say they're the 10th pick in the third round, that's about 74. Let's just call it 75. They have 4 picks from 10 to 75.
Nice.
They're winning the division.
What's New Orleans got, real quick? Read me New Orleans.
Scroll down here for a second.
Don't even know why I'm giving New Orleans pod time, but
well, they're fascinating because of how far they're under the cap.
Yeah.
Okay, so they have 3 extra picks because of the Marshawn Lattimore thing, I believe.
Yes.
So they have a first, second, third, fourth, sixth.
My gosh, they need all of them.
Yeah, but still in the first 4 rounds, if you talk about just ballparking it to like 120, they have 5 picks. They have 4 in the first 3 rounds, which again, I'm telling you, Thursday, Friday. Thursday's the first round, Friday's the second and third round. The Saints are going to be someone that's talked about that they just added 4 players.
Yeah.
You got to hit on them. I get that, but if the Saints aren't sold on Derek Carr and Spencer Rattler, who knows? Maybe another quarterback. I doubt it. But it's something to think about.
Yeah. All right. Is that
since it's our pod, do you know what the Patriots have?
I know they have a 1 and a 2 and a 3. They may actually have 2 3s.
First, second, third, fourth, fifth, seventh.
Yeah.
But still, 4 in the first 2 days.
Yeah. Hopefully they move all of those 7s for 1/6.
And the one in the third round's from Atlanta, which means it's like middle of the third round. So if you go middle of third round, you're looking at like pick 80. So they have 4 picks in the top 80.
Yeah.
That's good. And the most amount of cap space. They're dealing still. Who knows?
And the third weakest schedule.
Patriots. Hey, what's that?
Watch us get that 7 seed, baby. Watch us get that 7 seed.
I'm going to FanDuel right now to look at the Patriots over/under. I'm going right now.
There's no way it's even accurate.
Who knows?
But you know how good I am at this? I'm gonna say 6.5.
I mean, we got to wait for this thing to load.
I'm so
Okay,
good
here
at
we go
giving
now.
Vegas over-unders.
We're getting,
Tell me it's 6.5.
they might actually be calling you soon. I don't even know if they have them up yet. We're gonna check.
This is why I suck at betting though, because
No, they
I'm
don't.
so
They don't.
good at
They don't
I'm
have.
so good at nailing what the actual coverage is, but I don't know if it's supposed to be over or under.
You can only bet like a few different players, like the top players, like their futures and stuff like that. Like they've already got it for Saquon to break the rushing record next year.
So New England to win the Super Bowl is
Oh yeah, Super Bowl's on there.
plus 7,500,
I'm not
which
taking.
is worse than the Falcons, Seahawks, Dolphins. I like our chances over all three of those teams.
I like that when I scroll all the way down to where I can't scroll any further, I still can't see the Steelers. That's good. So they're higher than like the bottom 8 to 10. It makes
The Browns, the Giants, and the Titans all have the worst odds to win the Super Bowl.
as they should. The Browns are a lock for 4th place in the division.
No offense. No, they're not.
Why? Because Skylar Thompson's currently the starting quarterback for the Pittsburgh Steelers.
I'm sorry, but if you guys get Aaron Rodgers, I'm out on you guys.
That's fine.
I'm out.
Just be out on the Browns more. I'm not saying we're going to be great. 6 wins beats the Browns.
Yeah, if Deshaun Watson's a starter, sure, they'll be 4th. But if he's not, they can be decent.
Ish. Browns are the Browns.
Ish. Browns are the Browns. Till they're not the Browns. Which, as long as we've been pod, they've been the freaking Browns.
There was a few moments with Baker where they weren't the Browns.
And then they're like, get this guy out of here.
Yeah, that was just a good month.
What do you mean you're hurt and you're kind of cocky?
What do you mean
We'd
we
rather
suck
have this
forever? You just went and took us to the playoffs and beat the Steelers in Heinz Field. Get out of here. We don't do that here. Go to the Panthers. Run D end at practice for the Panthers. That's a crazy photo.
Oh, goodness. Well, I think that's a wrap, right?
Yeah, that's it. I mean, just a mock draft, talk some free agent, talk some draft.
Yeah. We'll see you guys next time. Thanks for listening.
Yeah.
We're out.
Take it easy, guys.